subject is WWF versus WCW rings. Hello, K100 crew. Greetings and love from Santa Barbara. First question I've ever asked is actually a follow-up question about the types of rings in wrestling. You were recently asked about the types of rings you wrestled in. I was going to ask the exact same question, but something was left out. Even as a kid, I could tell there was a difference between WCW and WWF rings, and to me at the time it sounded like WCW rings sounded harder to land on the WWF rings. But from learning from multiple interviews, WWF rings were much worse to bump in the WCW rings. Could anyone explain as to what made them sound different and how differently it felt taking a bump between the two rings? Number one, the WWE ring was bigger, was wider, like just like more area, and the ring was harder, a little slightly harder. Ours had more bounce, but their ring was slightly harder than ours. So you gonna get a comment about that, Conan?
I really didn't see any difference in either ring, but I was young and not hurt. You feel that more when you're like hurt or older, I think. And what was the other question in there? There was like two, maybe.
Just about
All right.
why do they sound different? It's like because one
Well,
had more, yeah,
yeah, more
They're mic
padding and the
different.
springs underneath.
yeah.
What about the difference in ring ropes, where WCW used the cables and WWE supposedly used rope? Did that guys ever affect you when you got into different rings between using cable versus using rope? Especially
Well, I
Conan.
never,
I
I
mean,
never. They all
if
have
you use the
cable.
top rope a lot and stuff, if it's
Every
just like
rope is cable.
springboards.
Every rope is cable.
WWE eats too.
Yeah.
I always
It's all
thought they said they
cable.
used
Cable
rope.
surrounded by hose. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Next is from Ben. The subject is grandkids. What's up, Disco? Like you, I'm an only child. I'm married with no kids. My mother is bummed that I'm not going to provide her with grandkids. How do you deal with the guilt of not making your Italian mother a grandmother? Um, I don't know. Just like none of us have kids. All three of us don't have kids.
Huh.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I never like the fact I traveled for so much of my life was I would have never even I didn't think about having kids because I wouldn't have been able to raise them. So I don't know. Next is from Luke Smith, and the subject is boxing follow up. Hey boys, just following up your thoughts on the Tim Zoo Tony Harrison fight. If you already discussed in the show, then disregard. He's now down to fight Charlo in Las Vegas to make all the belts undisputed in July. Does he stand a chance in that fight? Before Harrison, I wasn't sure he was at that level, but the way Zoo viciously dismantled him in that fight was pretty impressive. P.S. I had Joe Feeney hugely level heat with Conan for spoiling the finish to him before he got to watch a fight. Sorry again,
Ooh.
K Dog.
Oh no.
Wow.
Yeah, I do remember that. So
No.
this guy, the day of the fight, like maybe 2 hours afterwards, and I had recorded it. And part of the
Right.
fun of recording it was you don't know the finish. You
Right.
know, sometimes I'll record stuff and I have to travel, and I'll make sure I don't read anything or see anything that where the final score might be. And this guy's like, "Oh yeah, Sue won. What do you think of that fight?" I was like, "Dude, I haven't even seen it yet." But anyways, did you see that fight
No,
against
I didn't.
Harrison?
No, I heard it looked good.
Yeah, it was good, man. Sue's a little warrior, and plus I
Yeah.
liked his dad was great.
Yeah.
But I think that
Costa Zoo. What a great name, huh?
yeah, Costa Sue and bro, uh, he that's the guy's name, Tony Harrison.
Right.
If you remember, Tony Harrison has already beaten Jermel Charlo, but then
Right.
Charlo win and he beat him. Um, uh, I don't know, bro. I kind of like Zoo here. I liked what I saw.
Right. So next is from
You got somebody in that fight, Charlo or Zoo, Disco, or you don't
uh
follow them?
well, yeah, I gotta look at it first. So
Yeah.
I haven't thought about it yet.
I think
Next,
the odds have Charlo winning.
yeah. Next is from Michael Kahutek, and the subject is loudest booze you've ever experienced. The reaction to Jey Uso turn on Sammy got me wondering what the loudest boos you ever heard in person were. Whether it was directed at you or someone else in wrestling or a sporting event that you had attended. Mine would be a tie between A-Rod's first game back from his PD suspension against the Rays at Tropicana Field and Roman Reigns opening the Raw after WrestleMania the night after beating The Undertaker at WrestleMania, which was at the Amway Center. Seems all too rare to have all the fans on the same page at the same time. Thanks as always. Uh, yeah, the Roman after WrestleMania for sure. But I would put the first 6 to 8 weeks of the NWO and WCW up there too, because they got massive heat every time they came out. Would you agree with that, Conan?
Right, especially when they power bombed Derek,
Yeah.
remember?
Oh yeah.
And what was the other one? When Hogan joined. Remember that they were throwing in the ring? Yeah, all this trash epitomizes each every one of you. That's a great line.
Mhm. The loudest boos I ever saw, well, in wrestling was when Roman won the Rumble in Philly. Remember how bad the crowd turned on him at that point?
Yeah.
And then JD Drew returning to, or not even returning, coming in to play the Phillies after he refused to be drafted here.
Yeah. Next is Harry Ruiz, and the subject is AEW versus AAA. Hope you're doing great, brothers. With AAA champion Hijo del Vikingo scheduled to face Kenny Omega on Dynamite in what promises to be a match of the year contender, seems like the AEW and AAA relationship is stronger than ever. With that being said, is there a chance both companies can have a super show like AEW does with New Japan Pro Wrestling and AAA did with NWA? I could see it being a huge success if held in Mexico, Monterrey, LA, or a border city. P.S. While I don't like Billy, I don't understand those that write in or tweet to complain about him. I'm a K100 Day 1 listener and Day 100 K100 Patreon subscriber and listen every week because of Conan, Disco, and Joe, no matter who the guests are. Harry Ruiz.
Thank you.
Harry did a hockey game recently, too, supposedly.
Really?
I'd like to see if I can get some sound clips from that, yeah.
Yeah, Harry, besides being Patreon, he also came to my one night thing that I did in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a friend of the show. Good guy.
So listen, so answer that question.
Yeah.
What was the
That's
question?
interesting to me that the AAA champion is going to come in to face Omega on an AEW program. That could lend itself to some booking peccadillos, wouldn't it?
Like
Mhm.
what?
Yeah.
Well, you don't want your
Specific.
champion. You don't want your champion to lose to Omega on their television.
Okay. So, but was there a question besides yours? I'll answer them both.
So,
It seems like AAA are strong. Really,
Is
okay. Is
there
there
a
a
chance
chance to
that-
have a super show
Mhm.
with like AAA did with NWA,
like a
AEW?
forbidden
yeah.
door with AAA kind of thing.
Yeah, that's something that I've already inquired about, and I need to keep talking with Tony about that. But
Right.
hopefully we can in the future.
Okay. Next is from
And what was the question you had, Joe?
Just if it's how difficult it would be in kind of making a planning and finish to this match that would please everyone. Being
Well,
that
it's
he's your
not for his
champion.
title.
Yeah.
That's number one. And number two, well, I can't tell number two, but you'll see.
Well, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
There's a reason for this.
Next is from Dale Fortunio, and the subject is 4 Pillars of 4 Seasons. What's up, gang? So I'm watching Dynamite with the comical bar mitzvah for my fellow Long Islander. Darby, Sammy, and Jungle Boy enter the ring and have this over-the-top dramatic and symbolic stare-off. I'm listening to each of them claim their stake at who is next. My question is this: how can anyone in the back not realize that this right here is a year's worth of TV in just one opening segment? I know you guys don't like booking ideas, but wouldn't you transition into Jungle Boy being a contender since he literally just buried his last feud with Christian? Or Darby, who has been vacant? Bonus. Speaking of Christian 20 years ago, him and Jericho made great TV together. Why wouldn't AEW use both of them together to create more great TV? My head hurts. Thanks, guys. I don't see how that was a whole year of television in one segment. I just thought it was. I don't know. I think this guy's reading into that. But bro, I would. MJF is fighting all the small guys. Like and the 4 pillars, they're all 4 undersized guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of weird that they consider those
well,
pillars.
at the end of the day, pillars isn't based on height, but fact. They were 4 pillars of the company. I mean, I don't know if they were the 4 pillars, because if I had to guess, I would say Kenny, the Young Bucks, Chris Jericho, and Cody Rhodes.
But they're the 4 main guys as far as guys coming up.
That's what I would think,
homegrown, if you will.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what they were the pillars of. Maybe holding up a chair together or something.
Pillars of the future or something. I don't know.
But yeah, I'd love to see Christian and Jericho do something, whether they just face off.
That would be great.
Yeah. Next is from David Barnett. The subject is Hall of Fame. Hey guys, I'm writing in regards to the Dominik Ray storyline. First of all, I want to say that Dominik has won me over big time this past year. He's one of the top reasons I tune into Raw each Monday.
Agreed.
After seeing this segment this past week in which he interrupted Ray's speech about being announced as the first Hall of Fame inductee for the class of 2023, I couldn't help but to envision another possible scenario. My question is this: do you think it's possible that WWE would have the balls to run an angle during the actual Hall of Fame ceremony in which Dominik sabotages Ray's acceptance speech? Or do you think that would be too distasteful? If Dom were to show up and attack Ray during the introduction, the heat would be thermonuclear. Interesting. Well, Conan's not been announced yet to induct him, so we don't know what's going on here with that.
Right. Didn't he have a question? Or that was the question? Okay.
Well, just like, wouldn't that be cool? Like if the
right.
So, next is from Easton Axwoon, and the subject is the Undertaker's full of shit. Last week, The Undertaker appeared on the Great Chris Van Fleet show on YouTube, and during the interview, Taker was complaining about the lack of realism in modern wrestling. I guess he wishes it was back to the reality of his day when zombies would wrestle barbarians in matches, or are we supposed to forget that Undertaker versus Berserker match that ended with Undertaker being stabbed by a sword and no selling it?
He never stabbed him. He threatened to stab him. Undertaker
threatened to stab, yeah. Basically, I'm asking you, if you think that the Undertaker's being a hypocrite, P.S. guys, you got to shut Billy down when he starts going on about Cody Rhodes. Not a Billy hater, but it's boring when he does that. His opinion really means nothing to us.
Then why do you listen to him?
Yeah, right. It's like, what do you want to shut him? But he has an opinion on Cody Rhodes. We disagree, bro. That's what these people don't understand here.
Right.
You think that we bring the guy on to agree with us? It's like Jesus Christ. Like, we
both disagreed on the
bro,
Cody Rhodes.
We used to bring on Ryan Satin. And we brought on Ryan Satin because he had very convictions in what he said, and he was on the opposite side of like most of the stuff that I said, which I think makes is more interesting
Right.
when we're disagreeing on topical stuff. Right. Billy claimed, and I said we would bookmark this when, 5 weeks ago when he said it. I said, let's bookmark this comment. You said he was going to start getting booed. Has he gotten booed?
No.
Okay, so that's. So
neither
there,
has
like,
Liv Morgan turned heel.
Right. So it's like, we plant our flag. He made a statement, and he so far has been inaccurate. He's trying to get over by saying, well, look at the ticket prices for the show. They're down. It's like, yeah, because The Rock's not on it. But that doesn't mean they would have sold with Sami Zayn in that spot. This just means like the tickets
here's
are still
the other
right.
thing,
Yeah.
Billy. It's okay to be wrong. Big deal.
Right. I'm wrong once. I've been wrong once.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and this guy, that's about Billy, but the other guy was saying if Taker's a hypocrite because back then they had like, zombies like that. Well, yeah, wrestling was different back then, just like movies and everything else. Not, wrestling had, wacky characters that wouldn't get over today. And who hasn't had a match? I think he's right. There is a lack of realism in modern wrestling.
Right.